Heavenly Father, your children are gathered here today to praise you, to carry on your work. I would ask that you bless them today and bless them as they continue in their endeavors. I'll begin by telling you that I'm originally from Texas. I grew up there. My father was killed when I was a little boy, and I was without supervision. My mother was lacking in any formal education, and she supported us by doing washing and ironing. This occupied her time so much that she had very little time to discipline us. She was a very, very good lady, very good Christian. But she only had time to provide us with the necessities of life. And of course, I was too young to realize the profundity of what she would tell me. I grew up as I pleased. I took to the streets. There were many times before I had reached the double digits that I stayed out all night. When I was hungry, I would just break into a grocery store and eat my fill and leave. I was little more than a wild animal. I learned early on in life that violence could get me what I wanted. I carried weapons, or a weapon, a knife. I found that what I liked in rhetoric I could make up for in threats, and I found that people would usually comply to a threat of violence. I resigned myself to believe that this is the way that I should live, that I could get what I want by illegal means and by violence. Well, this continued for the better part of my life. I was arrested the first time when I was 10 years old. Jail wasn't that bad. The jail I was in, a friend of mine and myself, he was a couple of years older than I, we had stole, some of you might remember, there used to be a motor scooter called a Cushman motor scooter. And we had a fancy for that, and we wanted it, and we took it. We got arrested in a small town, and put me in jail, and the sheriff brought a watermelon in there and gave us each a half a watermelon. He even put his little dog in the cell with us. And I thought, well, this is nothing. I was eating watermelon and petting the dog. But this trend of malbehavior continued. I was in prison and in reform school, in and out so much that I never really became socialized. I was in prison so much that I knew the ways of prison better than I knew the ways outside. The outside world simply became a place where I would rejuvenate myself, make some money, and have some fun before I would go back. This continued for a long time until I amassed in the neighborhood of 15 years incarcerated in 3 different states, Texas, New Jersey, and New York. The last time I went to prison was in 1982. I was ashamed of myself. I was really, really ashamed of myself. I was disgusted. I was my worst enemy. Well, I went to Attica first. I was in Attica, and they sent me from Attica out of reception to a place called Albion. I was so disgusted, filled with self-hatred, that I wanted to end my life. But I decided to do it, to go out in a flash. There were a couple of guys in the facility that I didn't like. I considered them to be big mouths, extortionists, They were taking advantage of other guys. I've always liked to grab the toughest of the tough to show them that I'm the main rooster. I am the rooster. I wanted to take these two guys off the count. Now, in our terminology in prison, off the count means I wanted to kill them. This obsession became a psychosis in that I actually sat down and planned this out. I was looking for an opportune time. I knew that in killing these two guys, that I myself would lose my life, but I would have rid the earth of three scum guys, three really worthless guys. Well, I was in the yard one day. It's probably a day or two after I had thought this out. I thought the mess hall would probably be the best place to do it, because when a fight breaks out in the mess hall, guys just scatter everywhere, and if you have any problems with any other guys, they're usually settled in the confusion. There's usually many disputes are resolved in the confusion. I was walking in the yard, and the chaplain came over to me. He called me over. He said, "Paul, come here." I walked over. He said, "I would like you to make a Kairos weekend." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, there's a program coming in. I'd like you to get involved in it." I said, "What is it?" He said, "I can't tell you." And he said, "I can't describe it. Just tell me you'll go." He said, "There's good food, stuff." I said, "All right, I will." That's all he told me. Now, that night in the mess hall, I talked to a couple of my buddies, and they told me that he had also approached them. The more guys I talked to, the more I realized he had picked out all the bad guys in the place. I thought, what's going on? He's picked out all the hardheads in the whole place. What is this Kairos thing? Are they going to give us shock treatments or something? Well, the day of Kairos came, and the fellas came in from the outside, and I'm telling you, they were frightened. They went in the chapel, and they were sitting around, and folks like yourself, and we walked in, and it looked like the Purple Gang coming in there. I'm telling you, we didn't know what to expect. We walked in there. Immediately, I realized what was going on. Aha, Christians. I was ready. Well, there are a couple of men here that made that first Kairos. Dick Ushel was one, and he can tell you that as I was not the most congenial person in the world those first couple of days, I tried my best to get everybody mad. I said, "I know what you people want. You're burdened with guilt because you've had everything handed to you. Your concept of adversity is your steak is overdone." Well, I was going to prevent them from coming in and unloading any guilt on me, telling me what a good person they were and what a bad person I am. And I just kept barking and barking, and it occurred to me that I wasn't hearing any barking back. Nobody was saying anything back. I was angry, and the more I talked, they smiled. They said, "I understand." I said, "Yeah, you don't understand." "What do you mean you understand? What are you talking about, you understand?" They smiled, and they loved me, and they forgave me. The first night that we had the Kairos, I went back. One of the fellows asked me, "What's that thing all about over there? I heard some singing and stuff." I said, "I don't know yet. A bunch of people come in. They're not what I thought. They're Christians, but they're different. They're different kind of Christian. They gave us cookies and everything. I shared my cookies with the guys. They really liked the cookies. But the next day I went back and I started pretty much the same thing all over again. Dylan, I cornered Dylan. I was barking at him and he was smiling at me. But as the weekend progressed, I began to realize that these people were serious, that they didn't want anything from me. They didn't want to judge me. They hadn't come in to belittle me or to make me feel bad. They had come in to tell me that you've made mistakes, but it's not too late. You can change. God loves you. We love you. You can change your life. We'll help you. We'll be here and help you. But I think it was the third day that Palanca came in. I started reading the Palanca and I started crying. I'm telling you, it was like Niagara Falls. I couldn't stop it. It was long overdue. I was sobbing like a baby, and I was mad. Now I'm really mad. I said, Jesus. Now I'm going to go back out into the compound. I'm not going to be able to take what I want. These guys are going to snicker at me and this and that. My reputation is shot. But I felt good. I really felt good. I can honestly say, for the first time in my life, I felt like this enormous weight had been taken off of me. Have you ever been in a situation where afterwards you sit down and your brain is warm and it's numb? It's almost like, I don't know how to explain it. I went back that night to my barracks and I sat down and I was just mesmerized. I was thinking, but it wasn't thinking. I was just, something was going on. A transition was happening. I started reading the Bible. I opened the Bible, and I was ready to punch the first guy that come over and said something to me. But I started reading the Bible, and I started reading Proverbs. It said, my son, if you'll follow my ways and do what I tell you, you will be happy, this and that. And it was like getting a letter from your father. The more I read it, the more I thought, wow, I wonder why I never took time to read this. There's so much wisdom here, so much understanding. He knows exactly how I feel. I realized then that there was hope, that I could change. I was beginning to feel good about myself. I began to look at guys that I really didn't like at all. It just angered me to get around them. I began to see them in a different way, as frail, frightened human beings, people that needed to talk, that needed to be touched. Well, needless to say, I abandoned my deranged project that I'd been putting together just before Kairos. Inside me was beginning to grow a deep hunger, a need to do something to help others. And I began to think. I went off and became a recluse of sorts. I would sit by myself and I would think, when I get out, I'm going to help people. I'm going to keep people from coming to prison. I'm going to tell them about Christ. And it occurred to me, this is the nature of my talk, discovering Christ in prison. It occurred to me that I was in a tomato field looking for something to eat. I was in a place where guys were lost and forlorn and lonely. They needed Christ. I set out in my own novice way to try to befriend guys, to talk to them. It was very uncomfortable at first to go from being a guy that's feared to being a guy that is almost, you know, slap him, he won't do nothing, watch, really, slap him, that sort of a thing. It was difficult. But I discovered that when you have Christ in your life, don't plan to do something next week. Next week I'm going to go and help this person or help that person. I learned that you help people where you find them. Christ will put you in situations. Don't question. Don't second guess God. You will find yourself in a situation, the human side of you will say, no, I'll be embarrassed if I do that. I can't do that. Don't do that. God has put you there for that reason. He's put you in that situation. We always think of what we're going to do tomorrow, what we should have done yesterday. Well, let me tell you that the past resigns itself to memory. It's gone. It's gone forever. And so are opportunities that were there. The future is nothing but an abstraction that's based in hope. All we have is the moment. You cannot let the moment pass. When you see an opportunity to share Christ, to do a kind thing, do it. Do it then. Don't wait till you're back in your neighborhood with your friends. Do it then. That stranger that you're embarrassed to meet is a friend. He's 2 seconds from being a friend. She's 30 seconds from being a sister. I'm going to conclude this. I would just ask that you all continue the work that you've set out to do. I commend you all for what you've done to date. It's a very worthy cause. The men and women in prison need you. They need Christ. They need to know that someone cares. I suppose that's all I have to say. I want to thank you all very much for having me here. I want to thank Dick Usho for bringing me here and incidentally scaring me to death. It's my first time I ever flew, and Dick scared me to death. But I thank you all, and I love you all, and so does God.
We love you.